Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Obscura Undead. I'm Azzy and I have a guest host with me today.
Hi there. I am James Edward. I'm a very nice person, and I come here to talk about some music with my dear friend Azzy here. So,
Yeah, and James is of Male Tears, and we are not talking about Male Tears today. We have actually decided to deviate from the usual album review. And this is James' suggestion. I think it's a great one because so many bands are putting out singles. We each picked 3 singles that have come out this year to tell you about. So we're going to start off with James giving one, then me giving one, and just talk about them with you. They're all super solid. We just listened to them. Total mood. So with that said, let's get started.
alrighty. So I'll talk about my first choice on our list. We were talking about French Police's newest single. It's called Fumar, which means smoke in Spanish. What do you think of that of this song that I chose?
I loved the super jangly guitars. And just the really strong bass line, but I am a slut for a good bass line, so.
Right. I think the thing that stuck out to me the most about this track, because I've listened to like a fair amount of their music for sure at this point. I think it was really a treat to hear something that was like a high-pitched bass line, you know, like I think like in this kind of like dark wave sort of sound, it's typical that we hear like a lot of you know, like the most low basses that's possible. But here it was almost giving, it almost sounded a little slappy at some points, you know, I like that there was a lot of variation to the structure of the song as well. You know, there was like a lot of like ins and outs to it. You know, it wasn't too consistent throughout.
Right. So it has a very kind of Russian post-punk vibe instead of more of like an American indie post-punk vibe, which I really dug that. And I didn't realize until you told me that it was in Spanish, which should have been a dead giveaway from the title of the track. But here we are. Those vocals are so reverbed that I had to really listen to hear the constant repetition of quiero something. I couldn't catch the second word in all the cases, but I recognized quiero.
Yeah. I feel like that's kind of par for the course for this kind of music, right?
Absolutely.
Like it is just something that's like it's kind of, I see that sort of thing more of like a feature than like a flaw in like this kind of variation of like dark wave, you know, very guitar centric. But I feel like I just like how like into the front of everything, in the front of the mix that the drum machine is, and it's pretty dry for a drum machine. I usually feel like they add a lot of like reverb on like snare drums and stuff like that to get that kind of like old school like dark wave 80s feel. But like on this track, I felt like it was a lot drier in the mix, the drums.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like thinking back on the track, I didn't pick up on that, but it has that the snare a lot. And you're right, like it wasn't like a heavy reverb snare like what you would expect to hear.
Right. Let's talk about your first song though on your list.
My first one is Kill Shelter's new single, The Necklace, featuring Agent Sidegrinder. So Kill Shelter is Pete Burns. I love that he does so much collaborative work. And he has an upcoming album which he's doing a dual release on Metropolis and Manic Depression. And what's cool, I think, is there are two tracks that are exclusive to the US release and 2 tracks that are exclusive to I shouldn't say US, it's North and South America, and 2 tracks that are exclusive to the European release, Europe and rest of the world. And I asked him what was up with that, and he said, "Oh, it's just, you know, to have a different thing on each one." And I thought that was super cool. But
okay,
that track, Agent Sidegrinder, they do the vocals for it, and I love just how clear the vocals come through on that track. They have such great voices.
Very crisp.
Very, very crisp. And the sparse guitars laid over the persistent bass with the doomy synth elements. And it still makes up this like really bombastic goth sound, but it doesn't sound as formulaic as what we've come to expect from a lot of other goth tracks that have been released during the whole goth revival period that we're in, which is something I always appreciate from Kill Shelter.
Right. But I also thought it was kind of Gary Newman-y, like more recent kind of Gary Newman stuff. Like there was kind of like this like moody like industrial edge to it, I thought.
Yeah, I can absolutely see that or hear that.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that the chorus is so catchy because you get a slight shift in vocal tone.
For sure, yeah. I think it's like there's a chord change happening that I thought that really caught my ear like the first time that I heard it. You know, like a clear separation from the verse parts.
Mm-hmm.
Like I always appreciate when they do that kind of thing. So let's talk about my number 2. Wisteria dropped a hot new single called Your Shadow. I just heard him perform it last night. Actually, it's really good. I think what caught me about this one is like it's a lot funkier. I think it's way heavily like it's. I think Wisteria's always made music that sounded, you know, like 80s, but I think this is going more towards like synth funk, you know, kind of like Prince inspired stuff. Except for the vocals, which are kind of sang in this like deep kind of monotone register.
Yeah, like that smooth, dreamy, reverbed monotone voice.
Yeah, kind of like that kind of way that when a guy sounds like he just woke up, you know.
So you're saying it's a little sensual.
It is. It's that moany sensualness, and I think that the cover for it also kind of gives you that vibe too. It's like a very like kind of, you know, just like it's a vibe. It's kind of like this like soft kind of like pink quality to it, and then there's a hand there. I think like there's just a lot of kind of like flirtation going on with like the themes of this new single. What do you think?
I think certainly with those synths were so bouncy.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, like a xylophone.
Yeah, and I loved that it was kind of a sparse melody, but it was so bouncy that, I don't know, for being so simple, it was still really, really compelling. And I feel like throughout the track, I was hearing a switch between like a synth bass and an analog bass.
It's possible. I do know that he does play like he's multi-instrumentalist, you know, so like it's very possible. I also gotta, you know, bring up the fact that at the end of the track it kind of like it evolves into like this sort of like vaporwave sort of thing where it becomes like slowed and reverbed and like a lot more chopped and screwed at the end, where it's kind of just like repeating this like chopped version, you know. It's all pitched down. It sounds like your record player is kind of like coming apart or something.
Yeah, that caught me by surprise. I really liked that. It was a really great outro. Like, I felt like the track had ended and we were maybe listening to the next one, but it was still that one. It still had the same melody, but yeah, it was just a strong down-tempo shift. It was great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So my number 2 track was a bit more up-tempo, but it was Leather's new single, Runaway, and the video for it is just so gorgeous.
Very, very. I think that's kind of like that's almost the main thesis behind Leather's sound and music is pretty. You know, like everything sounds pretty, everything looks pretty, everything's like clean and sparkly, you know. Like I feel like this is what I would be listening to when I'm like going through a Sephora or something. Like it was giving that kind of vibe, you know. And I also think Shannon, she's also like part of the band Actors. I personally thought that the track was almost like an Actors song featuring mostly just her, you know, like sans Jason's vocals.
I suppose, but I thought that I guess for me, her vocals really made the track, that it differentiated it so much from Actors for me. It had it's dream pop masquerading as darkwave, but the melody is so lovely. Shannon's vocals are so gorgeous, and I'm gonna warn anybody watching the video right now though, Shannon smiles and looks super happy in the middle, so do not be surprised. I know you expect super seriousness all the time.
That's very human of her to do too.
I thought it was amazing. The first time I saw that in the video, like it made me feel good. Like it was just a bright, genuine smile, and it fits just so well in the mood of the track. The song makes me happy.
That's great. You know, I got that vibe too. It's that bright, kind of euphoric sort of tone throughout the song. I know that there are parts where it kind of like becomes like this nocturnal phase in the track, you know, to kind of break up the consistency of it all. But I think it's still all within the bounds of being very dreamy-like, very like soft, but also like cutting edge. I thought, you know, like everything about it was pristinely produced. the big contrast to like my number three is a band called Deceits. They put out a single recently called Failures. What do you think of Failures?
Well, I thought it was about 90% hi-hat, but that makes perfect sense with just the really strong sort of up-tempo post-punk track. But I liked that the vocals, as opposed to the other two tracks you chose, had it was still like some echo on it and a little bit of reverb, but it wasn't so dreamy sunk down in the mix, and it kind of had more of a like short staccato feel to it. And I liked the energy of that song a lot.
Yeah. I think it harkens back to like the pre-80s kind of era of like post-punk in a way where it like, most things were just kind of like seeing like what you could do to like make like dark moods with just like a standard kind of like a rock band sort of format, like there weren't very many synths on this single, but that's like, pretty different for me. I love hearing synthesizers in just about everything, but I felt that it carried it out on its own. I think that it was holding its ground. I thought that, for it being like their first single, I think it's promising. And I do know for a fact that they have another single coming out on the 27th of May. I think that one, because I've heard a sneak peek of it, I think it's all your worries are, set aside at that point, because I feel like they've very much stepped it up. So like I can't wait to be proven right, and everyone thinks that they're great as much as I do at this point. What's your number three?
Well, I just want to say one more thing about the Deceits. I think you're right to think they're great, because they did so much with very little variation in the melody between the guitars and the bass throughout the track, except for a slight shift in like how many beats per measure that the guitar played between chorus and verse. But it was still, great. You don't feel bored, and I like that. I definitely look forward to hearing this next single. When it drops, if I forget, you need to send it to me. But my third track is one that I would have expected to. It's more in line with what you were choosing for your first two, and this is iamnoon's new single, "The Need," which is on Cold Transmission Records, and it's a lot. The first two tracks I picked, honestly, they're more like dance floor tracks. This one is not. This one is a total mood. I love the synths in the intro, and then when that sort of post-punk style guitar picks up, it's soft and it's dreamy, and then the vocals are also very soft, but I enjoy the shift of emotion in the melody and the vocals as the song progresses.
Yeah, I thought that's good. I appreciated the tone of it. I appreciated the thematic kind of just the whole sonic palette that it was offering. I'm not a huge fan of like vocals that are like whispered, at least, but that wasn't that consistent throughout the song. Did felt like there was kind of just like, like what if you've heard like the first minute, you're gonna hear like the rest of it like in the same exact way. But that's not to say that it was lacking in writing or anything. I think it's just kind of like one of those mood dependent things, like you just said yourself, that the first couple tracks that you chose were a lot more like dance floor oriented. I feel this one is kind of like very much like a in your room by yourself, candles, dark room, kind of that mode. And if you're not in that, maybe it's not going to be like maybe it's not like what you want to listen to. But I personally think that it does remind me of a lot of things, like I said previously, to draw that comparison again, Gary Newman, when it comes to like things that have this kind of like harder edge to it. I felt it was like really similar to the Kill Shelter song. But yeah, like anything else that you want to say about iamnoone's new song?
No, I agree. It's great ambiance. It's definitely for me a 2 a.m. I can't sleep sort of track. And yeah, I absolutely understand the whole mood dependency things, because oh my gosh, I have too much music where I listen to it and I'm just like in a particular mind space, and I'm just like, I really don't like this. And then I'll be in a particular mind space, like 4 hours later, I'll listen to it again. And I'm just like, how did I not like this the first time around?
Right. Some things are like that. I'll probably end up listening to all three of these that you recommended as well. And I'll probably have like a different kind of like opinion of it just based on like how I'm feeling at that exact moment, like most things. Right. But, all right. Yeah. Thank you all for listening. And paying attention to what we have to recommend, because like we want to see new music succeed out there in the scene. Isn't that right?
Absolutely. And if there are any singles that have come out in the last couple of weeks, the last month, whatever, what you're planning on picking up for the next Bandcamp Friday, let us know, because I miss a ton of stuff. I'm sure James does too. So bring it to our attention. What should we be listening to? We told you what you should be listening to. What should we be listening to? And I'll see you again all shortly. And I promise to have James back.
I will be back. I'll be back. All right. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Bye.
Bye-bye. This is